Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Namaste. Today we are going to talk about a very important subject in Vedic learning. There is another video, it's on the description of this video, that I was talking about the Hindu learning process and the Western learning process. This video is a kind of continuation of that video. Well, in the West, what I'm giving the title as linear Cartesian thinking, we are taught to think in this way. There is a line, and in this line there is point A and it goes to point B. And as the knowledge progresses from point A to point B, we are evolving, we are progressing with the science. And this line usually tends upwards. The idea is that we have the specific dot in the past that it was the beginning, and we have a specific dot, it can be anywhere here, in the future, and this trend is linear. It doesn't go round in circles in a hemisphere, in a sphere. So, in the West, we are drawn to a kind of methodology that is very good to analyze simple structures. Simple structures here is being defined as a thing. When you cut down the pieces, when you do the analytic process, the joining of these parts is not very important to understanding the whole picture. Okay? It's like a house made of wood. And the woods, they go in a certain way that everything that you need to understand is basically the woods. How the woods stand for the weight that it is going to carry over. Okay? There is no interrelation between one wood and another wood in a very strong manner. There is the relation between the wood and the thing that you use to fix it. I don't remember the word of this in English now, but it's just like the thing that you use the hammer. So in this way, we have several analytical concepts that are weakly correlated, like mathematics, like kinds of things that we can apply this method of linear, simple thinking, okay? But life, it's a very complex subject. And complex here we are going to define as a thing where the relation between the parts is such as important or more important than the parts. And in this case I use the example of a fishing net. The fishing net has several dots where the things there, I don't remember the word, the lines, you can say, they met, okay? They meet. And in these points, it's the place where there is the joint of several lines, and this creates a new phenomenon that emerges from simple factors, and the complex emergence that happens is more important than the isolated part itself. Okay, In this kind of situation, just like in biology or anything that is by its own nature complex, when you cut the strings there and you try to analyze the dot by itself, it destroys the phenomenon that you're looking for, like the ability of the fishing net to grab things because of its systematic, its holistic functioning. Okay? So, I'm not saying that the linear thinking is bad and the spherical thinking is good or holistic, you could say, or onion, as we are going to talk about soon. But the point is that there are some good things where a rule can work better or a hammer can work better, and there are some places where the fishing net can work better. We need to understand quite specifically what is being defined here as simple events and complex events. A lot of simple events doesn't make one complex event, okay? Because by definition, the complex event is where the correlation between the parts is strong, and the simple event is where the correlation between facts or events is weak, okay? So, in a statistical thinking, we have this correlation tool to analyze where a change in one part will imply at the same time a change in another part. For example, when I was studying economics, we were studying the behavior of the consumer according to its own choice or also according to other choice. For example, if you're going to the market to buy rice, and for you it doesn't matter the person it's on your side, it's buying the rice type A or type B, this is going to be a simple event, even if it's 1,000 times, okay? And can be 1,000 people working like that. It's not the matter of the number of the size of the sample that is going there. It's the effect of correlation. If in the time that I go to the market and I pick one rice and the person that is seeing me picking the rice change his mind because of my choice, this is going to be a complex event because the interrelation is strong. It's creating difference between the behavior, okay? So let's move on. When we are studying Ayurveda or Jyotish or any of these Vedic Shastras, it's very important for us to apply the complex thinking, the spherical thinking or the onion thinking. I'm going to explain why we are saying this. Because the life process itself, according to Vedic vision, it doesn't have a beginning or it doesn't have an end. In a way, that the life process is like a sphere. Where is the beginning area of the sphere? You can look here in the drawing. There is a circle here, right? In the circle, by definition, there is no beginning or end, okay? In the line of the square, you can say that one part is the beginning and another part is the end. But in a sphere, here, in a sphere, by definition, the circle, it's a place where there is equal distance from the center. Okay, this is mathematical definition of a circle. And in a way, the sphere is also a kind of cluster of circles. It's on 3 dimensions, it's not on 2 dimensions. So in this way, in a plane, we can have beginning and end. In a circle or in a sphere, there is no beginning and there is no end, even though it's not limited. It has the capacity for you to go round and round infinite times, but it has some limitation because the size of the rail, I don't know the name in English, the distance from the point inside to the outer part, it's defined, so there is a limit there. But in the sphere, in the circle, there is no beginning or no end. Okay? In this way, when you are studying complex subjects like biology, like Ayurveda, like psychology, the interrelation in the parts are very strong. And if you cut the net, you lose the point. You throw the baby out with the water. So here, what we are saying that if you're trying to learn Ayurveda, Jyotish, whatever yoga, you should be able to start to visualize the whole circle or the whole sphere by one time, just like a soccer player. When or a football, American football player, when the ball is thrown or something is happening, there are several things working at the same time, and the whole process has to be considered in a whole, not just the speed of the ball. You have also to consider how the direction of the wind, and also how the floor is, if it's wet or not. This is complex thinking, okay? And during this time, if you try to do it with your analytical hemisphere of the brain, your left hemisphere, probably you're going to be knocked out. You also have to develop a kind of right hemisphere brain capacity to handle by what we call intuition. So the point is that in this spherical thinking, there is no correct answer about where should we start or how should we go from one point, from one question to another question. If there is a question about, let's go to Ayurveda now. If there is a question about Agni, and then there is a question about Vata, Pitta and Kapha, and then there is a question about herbs, and then there is a question about if you're going to do Panchakarma or not, and then there is a question about, again, the Shrotas and all this confusion. This is a way that we are going in the hemisphere, and we are traveling around and around and going on circles, but we are reaching somewhere. We are reaching the ability to handle with the complex events. So if there was a Panchakarma program going on, and then the rain changed, and then the whole program needs to change because this was one of the factors that were under consideration in the spherical thinking of the ball, that we are looking at different perspectives all the same time, even though we are looking in a sphere in one side first, and then we look in the other side first, and then we look in the other position, and then we look in different positions. Our mind usually is not very able, unless we are in a very meditative state of mind, to be with the sphere all together, because our brain is not very designed for that. It can be done with our mind, but not with our brain. But this is a different subject. But the point is that I'm not saying that we should look to the sphere in a complete holistic manner all the time. We can look in an analytical manner, that we are seeing from different perspectives, and we are handling this phenomenon from several points of view, but we are considering all of them as important. In a linear thinking, you are considering one point and then another point, and the first point is just like trash. It's embedded in the second point, and the second point, from the second point you progress to the third one, and the third one, it's going to embed the second and the one the first that are still operating. This is a kind of progressive thinking, and it's very potent in mechanical thinking. Like if you are considering a clock, if you are considering a car, if you are considering everything that is related to Mars engineering, this kind of thinking will be very strong and will be very powerful. But if you are considering the process of nutrition of life in a plant or in a human being, this will not be able to deal with the strong relations that are work inside the spherical, the complex thinking, okay? But up to now, we don't have onions. We still only have one sphere. And now things are going to be a little bit more funny, because we are going to consider like several spheres in one sphere, and we call this process onion because it's easy to visualize, okay? The idea is that at the same time, we are able to access several layers of this onion, but usually we are more comfortable for just like an X layer there. So let's suppose that there are, just for the sake of example, 10 layers in this onion. And suppose we are on layer number 3. This means that we are comfortable about layer number 1, layer number 2, and layer number 3. For example, when you're learning about Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, first you learn in the layer number 1, and then your consciousness expands, your awareness expands, and you go to layer number 2. And then after some time it goes to the layer number 3. This means that you in the layer number 3 already have this is kind of the thinking that we use in the linear thinking. But the point is that all these spheres, they work kind of separately. This means that one thing that is correct in one layer is not necessarily going to be correct in the layers below. For example, when I was in high school, it was considered that the linear movement, linear uniform movement, wouldn't considerate the what's the word for that in English? Doesn't matter. You understand. But after some time, you have to consider the friction. Okay, the friction in the calculation. So, what is right in the example, in the exercise with no friction, will not be right in the layer, the upper layer where you are considering the friction. For example, sometimes, in the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha example, sometimes in the first layer, you only know about Vata, Pitta, and Kapha in general sense. In the second layer, you understand that Vata, Pitta, and Kapha has some gunas. In the third layer, you understand that Vata, Pitta, and Kapha has strong correlation with some dhatus, and so on. Doesn't matter. In the first layer, if you just understand there is some Vata imbalance there, you are going to pick up any of those gunas, and you're going to work with that. It doesn't matter if it's Ruksha, it doesn't matter if it's Lagu, it doesn't matter if it's Sukshma. You are taught that, I was taught, I suppose that you are also taught, that doesn't matter which kind of guna you're taking, this will help Vata to go to balance if you put the opposite in that scale. Okay? But as you move on, you see that sometimes if the person is with some Vata aggravation and it doesn't appear so much the Ruksha, the dry guna, it appears more the Lagu, the light attribute. If you do Snehana, if you do liation, in this case, it will not be very helpful, even though Snehana is one of the most important things, generally speaking, to handle Vata aggravation. Okay? So this is one point to understand that not everything that it's correct in one layer will need to be still correct in other layers. But this doesn't mean that this is completely wrong, and this doesn't mean that this is completely true, and this is the problem, trying to see the onion through the particular lens of linear thinking. Because the spherical thinking, it englobes, it incorporates the idea of progress somehow, but these progress are with different institutional rules, let's say like this, frameworks, and not everything that it's in the framework below will be compatible with the framework in the different levels. But in this example there was 10 layers, and we are able to be at the third layer. But by intuition, by divine consciousness, we can access the fourth, the fifth, the seventh, the sixth, the 10th, the ninth, and not in the complete picture, just like we have a glance. And these things create a kind of hole in the system that brings our awareness to higher levels of understanding. For a second we understand what is being said there, but our consciousness, our nadi system, is still not working fully to handle this kind of electricity level, let's say like that. And after some time that the guru is not close enough, our mind recedes to a level where it can operate the amount of energy that is necessary to that kind of understanding. So the thing about the spherical thinking or the onion thinking now is that we should increase our ability to retain prana, tejas, and ojas in a manner that we can have the entry and allowance to stay in these different levels of awareness. Once we are established there, it's very it's not very common that we go backwards, in a sense that we cannot accept that, we cannot handle anymore that level of understanding, but we can go backwards in a sense that we can explain those terms to another people. So when we are dealing with this kind of Vedic tradition, the guru is prospecting, screening the ability of the Shisha there in that moment to the different levels of awareness that are going to be able to be taught there. So there is one classic saying about when before enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water, and after enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water. This means that the thing that you're doing outside may not change so much, but how you're experiencing the same shloka or the same charak samhita or whatever, it changes completely, because inside it changes a lot. In this manner, usually, when I go to India or something like that, people say the same thing a lot of time in different years, the same person to the same person, but the idea is that you're getting to another layer, to another layer is better to say than level, because level implies this connotation that the level 2 is better than level 1. Layer, it's in a sense that, okay, layer 1 has some specificities, it's good there. Layer 2, the same. Layer 3, the same. And layer infinite, the same. Because the process of awareness in the human body, I'm not saying very yogic advanced people, I'm saying what we call regular people, as I consider myself. It has some limitation of understanding, because the human brain, it can operate up to a certain level of, up to a certain layer of awareness. After that, we need to transform into kind of light beings to be with a kind of system that it's able to handle more powerful, more advanced, more large, more big level of awareness. But the point is that when we are learning from a guru, we should not be comparing ourselves with the person that it's next by, because the person can be in the layer less or more than you, but this will not imply that he is better or worse than you. This is only his karma or her karma, and you have your karma, and it is a lot of things to handle. We don't need to be preoccupied with other people. There is no need for worries in this sense. We should focus in increase our prana and tejas and ojas. I'm not going deep here now, but the point is that through our spiritual practice, through our improvement in our sattvic behavior, this allows us to flourish in our mind, in our nadi system, and a lot of nadis that were not operating, they start to not reincarnate, they start to come again to life, and this will help us to go to the next layer of consciousness in a healthy manner. Because the point is that if you use a lot of techniques to speed up this process, you can be burn out, like these cases of Kundalini awakening, that the person was not fully prepared to handle the amount of prana in the system that was operating there. Okay, so the best thing is to be in the layer that you are. Considering this layer the most perfect one that you can be in this moment, and preparing yourself through your spiritual practice, not only reading books, this can help, but preparing your spiritual body is not a good word to say. Preparing your pranamaya kosha and your manomaya kosha and your vijnanamaya kosha in a sense that it's more clean from impressions that are very gross, very stula, and this will enable us to increase our ability to handle the amount of electricity that it's working, prana that it's working in our mindset. I'm using the word mindset in a more broader sense, in the yogic, cautious sense. Okay? So when we are learning Ayurveda, Yoga, and Jyotish, we have to understand these different layers and be able to pick up the proper layer that it's appropriate for that moment, for that person, for that event, and see that it's okay in this lens, but it's not perfectly true in other ones, but this is not a problem. Truth is multi-level, and according to the level, there are some set of rules working there. Okay? So I hope that this video has helped you to go to a little bit more comfortable layer of understanding on how to handle the study of Ayurveda, Yoga, Jyotish, Vastu, palmistry, and whatever. Okay? If you want more information about my videos, there is the playlist of my Namaste Speaks series and also the Namaste Talks series. If you want to have any kind of online counseling with my Namaste coaching program, just send me an email. The address is there, and I will be very glad to have a Namaste coaching with you. Okay? See you soon. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Namaste.